right, let's talk about statements of fact. Talked about this in a previous video. I think I need to address it a little bit more. What it means to make a statement of fact, okay? So we know that explaining things to women is a futile thing, all right? It's not that women can't understand stuff, or like their brains just aren't big enough to understand us, us men or whatever, that's not what it is, okay? It's that when they're in a sexual relationship, whether that's first meeting somebody that's an option for dating, okay, or whether it's when there's a sexual dynamic, okay, that shouldn't say in a sexual relationship, but when there's a sexual dynamic, all right, they're not using the parts of their brain that would be logical. Okay, so let's say a woman could be a supervisor for somebody at work, and if there's no sexual component to that, it's she could assess that employee and all that stuff at no different level than a man, right? It would be the same, you know what I'm saying? But in a relationship where there is a sexual dynamic, whether it's dating, whatever, or a full-blown relationship, they're not making decisions with that part of their brain. That's not what's driving their decision making. That's not what's driving the emotions, okay? So this is why explaining things to women is not going to be successful for you in relationships. That doesn't mean you never discuss things or whatever, but there's always an emotional communication, and you're communicating to her hindbrain or her instinctual sexual brain, her primitive sexual brain, when you're having discussions. That's the difference. And you do that through tonality and emotional buy-in. Okay? That's where she is emotionally drawn to you, which makes her, and sexually drawn to you, which makes her want to cooperate with you, and then are open to whatever the logical framework is. All right? So that is how any kind of discussion should be had. If discussions do happen, it's not where you're explaining and she's explaining, we're going to make a logical decision, because that's just not how they work in relationships. It's not how their brains work. And that is very unattractive. If they have to get into that framework, they're unattracted to you now at that point. That makes them, when they have to get into a logical framework, they're basically getting in the framework of how a man would think, which is very drying, we'll say, to their V's. All right? So their girl parts, their lady parts are going to be bone dry, all right, during that logical framework and discussion. So we don't want that. That's not what you want. It's not the results you're looking for your woman, okay? But the question sort of happens that guys will ask me is, well, how do I set boundaries? If I'm having some discussion about these boundaries. It's a very good question. Well, generally you're doing it through your behavior, through your actions, but sometimes they just don't get it. You know what I mean? You're, let's say, pulling away a bit. You're letting them know you're displeased about a boundary that they're crossing. But then they notice that you're displeased, but they're really not getting it. You know what I mean? And so sometimes they don't understand legit, and you need to do something about that. But what do you do? Because explanations and logical explanations and stuff don't work, correct? So what do you do? Well, what you do is you make a statement of fact. All right? So that is what I've talked about before. You're not explaining anything. You're just making a statement, all right? It's a statement factually about what your standard is, okay? So you might say early in the dating process, I used this example in the last video. Yeah, I never give my commitment to somebody who's all over social media trying to get attention from other dudes. Those are just, those are your basic hoes. I want somebody who's a little bit better than that. If I'm going to give my commitment and put my energy into her more than just dating. You know what I mean? Like, if the discussion or social media kind of comes up, and you just make that statement. You know what I mean? All right, so you're not having this logical discussion, and maybe she has, behaviors on her social media and stuff like that. You're not having this logical discussion or debate with her where she now gets to debate your standard, right? And if she is not behaving within your standard at that moment, she now gets to make you wrong for having a standard, and then of course say that you're insecure because of your standard. That's always the good one. We'll shame you into not having standards by calling you names like insecure. Okay, so you shouldn't get to do that crap because you're not having this debate or discussion with her. You're just going to make a statement of fact, or another example of a statement of fact, like, well, I know that you know how to handle these guys that are interested in you, and you're not interested in them, and you value what we have, so I trust you. I trust you, baby. I know that you know what to do. All right. That's a statement of fact. Now you're making an assumption also, an assumption that she's going to be a good chimp. You see, so goes back to good chimp, bad chimp, right? And women are always motivated to be the good chimp, I call it. All right, good chimpanzee. Why good chimpanzee? Because evolutionarily speaking, women needed to have social acceptance for survival. So they're never wanting to be bad. They're always wanting to be good. When women get defensive because you bring up, let's say, a behavior that you don't like or whatever, they will get defensive because they're trying to show you, I'm a good person, right? I'm a good chimpanzee, right? Now, if you can, identify the behavior without attacking the person or making her feel that she's being attacked. So I know you're a great chimpanzee. You're the best chimpanzee. You know what I mean? Otherwise I wouldn't be with you. But this behavior though, or this thing, doesn't really match who you are, and that's why I'm addressing it, or whatever. You're going to have a propensity or chance for more success, okay, addressing something that way, because again, when they get defensive, it's usually because they're trying to be a good chimp, and they think that you are trying to say she's a bad chimp, and so that's when she'll get defensive. You know what I mean? And so you can disarm that a lot of times, but you're not saying she's a bad chimp, but what you're going to say is like, again, it's definitive statements. You know what I mean? Like you're so, yeah, so in that example, that was the assumption was, I know that you're better than those other women, those other bad chimps. And you are going to do the thing that makes you a good chimp, which is why I picked you and I allow you to be in my world. You see what I'm saying? So that's a statement of fact. You're not telling her what to do. You're not telling her, well, let's talk about how you handle these guys at work that we know want to have, we know they want to bang you, but what are you doing? Like you're not having this logical discussion where she gets to perceive you as being insecure and weak, okay, over what the standard should be. She knows the fucking standard should be anyway. So what you're going to do though is you might have to make a statement of fact. If she's not behaving, or if you think that there is something fishy, got a good feeling about, let's say, how she's handling coworkers or other dudes who are orbiters, you say that statement of fact. Well, I would hope, I believe that you would handle these guys that, maybe would like to get you in the bedroom rather than just be your friend. I would hope that you would handle them the right way if we're, considering that we're together. So again, statement of fact, you know what I mean? And so that way you get that hamster wheel turning, you know what I mean? Without, you give what you're doing with statements of fact is you're letting her know the standard, and you're not debating that standard any way, shape, or form. And she gets to figure out how to meet that. That's where she has her freedom. Whenever you take a woman's freedom away, okay, she's going to perceive you as a weaker man compared to other men who have abundance. If you had abundance with women, then you wouldn't have to take her freedom away. She could just meet your standards, or she is cast out of your harem, okay? And so superior alpha men, they don't try to control these women. They just say, here's a standard. Oh shit, you can't meet it? There's a door. You know what I mean? Inferior alpha men, or even beta men, they know they can't hold frame, so they have to try to do it through aggression and assertive behavior and logical discussions, you see what I mean? And getting her agreement and all this shit that doesn't resonate with her as a woman anyway. So let's have a discussion. You're going out with these friends, and who are these friends of yours? And you know what I mean. When you take that tone, you come off as an inferior man, right? And you don't hold frame, and that's why she gets annoyed with you, and that's why she doesn't want to have that stuff. But then the weak beta thing though to do would be to ignore things. So to just ignore it's also weak in beta. So just go ahead and don't set a standard at all and let her behave in this example however she feels like behaving with other men. You know, you're letting her and you just pretending it doesn't exist. Well, what you're doing is accepting it, and there's nothing more weak than that is a man with no standards. So what I'm suggesting you do with statements of fact is you let her know the standard, and sometimes, again, you're doing it through behavior. She should just sort of already know what's acceptable and what isn't. But you might have to say something, and you're not going to explain. You just say, just here's what it is. Hey, you know what? I expect this out of you. Or, yeah, you know what? I think you're pretty. I trust you, and I know that you would do the right thing with these people. Statement of fact. So that gets her, reminds her she has to do the right thing. If she doesn't do the right thing, do you think that having a logical discussion, let's say she's going out with a group of friends, and those friends have male orbiters who want to bang her, and you know what I mean, or whatever. She's going to some event, let's say it's a work event or something, you're not going to be there, whatever. You know what I mean? Let's say that's the thing. And let's say there's some suspect behavior that's led up to it. Do you think having a logical discussion about that event is going to make her not bang Kevin from sales? Okay, at the work events? No, it's not, is it? In fact, those discussions will probably push her make her more likely to do that kind of stuff. All right, so would you rather find out now, or would you rather invest more of your commitment and get all one-idacy over her and then find out that that's what she would do? You know what I mean? But better yet, though, would you rather handle her like the alpha that she would hope to be in a commitment with? So I think the answer is handle her like the alpha, right? And so you want to have these logical discussions, like whatever, you want to really express your standards, and you don't do that, right? Don't dictate her behavior. That's not dictating behaviors for somebody else is not a statement of fact. Don't say you better not do this or what, you know what I mean? I'm not putting up with that. She should know what you're going to put up with, what she's not going to put up with. What it is, though, it's statement of fact. Well, I'd never be with somebody who would do that. Right? It's a statement of fact. You're not telling her, you better not go back to Kevin and Sales' place after this event and go dead on comms on your phone. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have to say that, right? That's not really a statement of fact. That's trying to dictate her behavior. But instead, saying something like, well, I would hope you'd handle these people the right way. I would never be with somebody who couldn't. All right? And then she goes back to Kevin and Sales' place or whatever. You know what I mean? What happens? You know, she's done. That's what happens. You know what I mean? That's the end of it, right? Done relationship. This is why you have abundance with women. You can kick them to the curb, move on. But you get what I'm saying. So she probably, she's less likely to do that when you make a statement of fact rather than having a logical discussion or trying to dictate her behavior. You know what I mean? So I hope you can see the difference between obviously logical discussions where you're really going to explain, well, let's talk about these friends of yours, like you're her parent. That's not attractive. That doesn't work. Okay, that's makes you a lesser male. All right, whether it's a beta, mate protecting insecure beta, or whether it's a lesser alpha who's trying to use, lesser alpha would be more the dictating of behavior. You better not do this. I'll kick your ass to the curb. You do that, we're done. That's dictating her behavior, right? That could be a statement of fact, depending on what we're talking about. But generally though, like, you better not do that, or you're not going to go do that thing. That's dictating her behavior. Now, some women, their attraction triggers are polluted. Okay, they're a little dysfunctional, and they like that. That turns them on. That kind of stuff. But usually there's a lot of drama, okay, in those relationships, and the guy's constantly having to keep his woman in line. Too much for me, right? I don't recommend those types of relationships. Those usually are a little bit toxic, okay, or a lot bit toxic. But generally speaking, though, dictating her behavior, she's gonna do it anyway. She's gonna do it. She's gonna do it. Why? Because you told her so, and she's not gonna do it now. She's more likely to do it because you told her so. You know, if a woman doesn't feel like she's free, she's gonna try to fight to get that freedom. All right, she wants the freedom to be able to follow the best man that she could ever be with. She doesn't want to feel like she's forced into it. You know what I mean? That's only going to cause her, or tempt her rather, to try to get her freedom back, which means do the opposite of what you said. So if you're like, you better not bang Kevin from sales, you know what I mean? That actually makes her more likely to bang Kevin from sales when you do that. But when you make statements of fact, though, you circumvent all that stuff, right? So I highly recommend you use this tactic as either an alpha male or aspiring alpha male or whatever in your dating life and in your relationships and even in your regular everyday life. This is like management skills, you know, just saying, hey, you know what, and in our work group, this is how we handle it. You know, hey, our group, we're always on time to meetings. So if you got an issue with that, shoot me a text or call. But we're always on time here. What is that? That's a statement of fact, right? That's a standard. That's a standard we're all going to meet. What kind of leadership skills? Which is leadership? What do you think? Hey, just so you know, we're always on time to meetings here. All right? And if that's an issue, I need you to text me or call me beforehand. All right? Or, well, let's talk about, you know, being on time more. And I think that we should talk about, you know, what are you doing to, you know, manage your time at, like, I mean, let's, you know, well, I think it would be more respectful if you were to, you know, send me a message if you're going to be late and, you know, right? That's what is that? That's weak ass shit, isn't it? You know, or, hey, you better be on time or you're going to get your ass fired or written up or whatever. Okay. So that's an angry alpha way. Is it effective? It can be. Is that going to build, you know, a situation where people are going to want to work around you and be around you? No, it's not. Okay, so it's not very socially maneuverable. And if you're doing that shit with women, it's not going to work too well. You see what I'm saying? So see how the statement of fact is a good leadership skill set, but it's a leadership skill set you can use in and out of relationships. So you know, use it, right? Make statements of fact rather than discussions, right? Rather than logical discussions, rather than trying to dictate behavior, okay? And doing toxic things or threats or whatever. Just make a statement of fact. Hey, you know what? This is standard. This is what we do. You know what? She starts getting disrespectful or whatever, get loud with you. Hey, you know what? We love each other. We don't talk like that to each other. Maybe we need to take some time here. I'll give you, you know what? I'm going to give you some time because we don't talk like that to each other because that's not what people do when they love each other. And you walk away. That's leadership. How about that versus, don't you talk to me like that, right? She's controlling the frame then if you have to lose your cool. You see what I mean? So, anyway, statement of fact. Use it, okay? Get on my list. I haven't sent much out. I haven't sent anything out other than the first one, but I'll get to it. It's my summer. I'm enjoying it. The notification bell should work now. I figured that one out. So hit the subscribe and notification bell and support my content. I appreciate you. Thanks again.